All right, folks, let's get a little nerdy. Today, I want to talk about the heat transfer method for making soap. With heat transfer method, you're not using your microwave to melt your oils at all. With heat transfer method, you don't have to wait for your lye to cool down. In fact, you want just the opposite. So I'm going to show you how I use the heat transfer method to create a very large batch of soap. I wanted to put this video out so that you could see what I love about heat transfer method, which one is not using a microwave, two, not worrying about temperatures, but three, I was able to do a lot with a large batch of soap. It didn't get too thick, too fast. I was able to do a lot of things with it. So I'm just going to show you the parts that pertain to heat transfer method and any tips that I have. You're not going to be seeing like a final soap on this one. That'll come in my next videos when I show you what I made with this heat transfer method. I wanted to make this recipe and I was trying to make 14 pounds, which is huge for me. That's a big batch of soap. But I was looking at the wrong number. I should have been looking at that number. So I'm actually making 19 pounds of soap. That's a lot of soap. But we're going to do it anyway because I already measured my oils before I caught the mistake. So let's make a huge honkin' batch of soap. We are going to add the lye to our aloe juice, distilled water, sugar, salt, and citric acid. I normally will not mix lye in any container that's not clear. And one of the reasons is you want to be able to tell that all of the crystals have dissolved in your solution. But there's a few things you can do to be sure that all your crystals are gone. One, you want to stir constantly. Don't stop stirring and covering the entire base and sides of whatever you're stirring in. You want to constantly stir. You want to stir until the mixture starts to clear. Any cloudiness means that it isn't fully absorbed into the liquid. The second thing you want to do is make sure that your temperature is going down. So our temperature is going down. We don't want to wait much longer because we're using the heat transfer method. The heat transfer method means that we are going to use the lye at its hottest once fully dissolved, and we are going to mix it in with our hard oils. So bring our hard oils over and see what a big batch I'm making. I didn't even have a bowl big enough for it all. And then you want to be sure to scrape down the sides of your container because it is a chemical process. Everything has been measured and calculated, so you want all ingredients to be present. And now I'm just going to stir this around until all of these hard oils are melted and we have a smooth mixture of hard oils and lye, and then I will add my soft oils. One thing you need to be really careful of when doing heat transfer method like I'm doing is it's really tempting to keep your head over the bowl to watch as the oils melt. And that's not good because there's still fumes coming up from the lye. So just if you do this method, please be careful. Keep your face back. Keep your face masked. Make sure that you have good ventilation. Do it outside if possible. But you want to make sure that you're not breathing in those fumes by leaning directly over the bowl. All right, looks like we have everything completely melted. When you think you have everything melted, you just want to let it sit. Make sure that no little specks float up, any solid chunks of oil. I'm not seeing any here. So we're going to go ahead and add our olive oil and castor oil. And again, I'll scrape out my bucket just to ensure that I get everything. If you're going to make a mistake, you want the mistake to be that you have too much oil and not too much lye. If you have too much lye, that can be dangerous and harmful to skin. So want to make sure we have every last little bit of oil in there. We are working with a super fat. Super fat means that there is more oil than the lye can saponify. So even if I leave a little bit of oil behind, I should still be okay. But you really want to stick to your calculations as close as you possibly can. We have all of our oils mixed in here, so it's time to get blending. We're going to burp the stick blender, which means we get all the air out of the stick blender to try to reduce bubbles getting incorporated into our batter. And now we'll see how long it takes to get this emulsified. Another trick I learned for those of you making soap, sometimes when you're using your stick blender, everything's working fine and you're keeping your stick blender down to the bottom of your soap. And then next thing you know, the soap moves in just such a way that it opens up a space between the air and your blender head. And I have found that for me, with this particular stick blender, it happens when I'm moving my stick blender in a counterclockwise position. When I do that, the movement of the soap will create an opening. So I've learned with this stick blender specifically to go clockwise when I'm blending to prevent that from happening. So pay attention to your stick blender when you're using it. And if that's your problem, then make sure you're moving it in the right direction. It's important, especially when making a large batch like this, to make sure that you're getting in the corners in between your bursts of stick blending, because you don't want any pockets in the corners or down at the bottom or anywhere in the middle to not be getting hit by that blender. You don't want to end up with little pockets of oil that haven't been emulsified or bonded with that lye solution. All right, at this point, we have a very light trace. So we're going to go ahead and separate our batter now. I'm going to get my scale. We are going to measure off 7 pounds of this batter for one of our green molds. Now, it's always important when dealing with a large batch like this to fully stir it right before you pour it to separate. And let me make sure that I've got my scale taired. Okay, we're going for 7 pounds. All right, and that is 7 pounds. Did you see that? I started to go counterclockwise and I got a bunch of bubbles. I think this fragrance actually slows down trace. I have been blending for a very long time and I don't want to overheat my blender. So we're just gonna go ahead and pour as is. Pour it in. All right, that's one and done. So I'm not gonna bore you with all the details of the soaps I'm making. After the yellow one, I made this red bar of soap, and then after making those, I used the rest of my batter to fill a bunch of my embed molds. And I was able to make several small batches like this, adding colorant as I went and filling my molds. I had plenty of time to work with. You can see how fluid my batter is. And then I was able to fill in some cavities. You'll see on the pink molds in the back there, those are going to be for soap dough. And then I was able to fill these pink molds right here. So these are unscented, uncolored, perfect for people with sensitivities to either one of those things. So let's just review this. With the heat transfer method, you need to make sure that your lye is completely dissolved in its solution. You don't want any crystals. But as soon as the crystals are fully absorbed, you want to mix that high temperature lye solution into your hard oils, just your hard oils. You're going to stir and mix until all the hard oils are completely dissolved. Then you're going to add in your soft oils, and you're going to use a stick blender just to get it emulsified. And then as long as you follow the tips in this video, you should be able to create lots of things. So have fun trying this method if you haven't tried it yet. Happy soaping!